Malware can affect all legs of the triad. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of malware. These distinctions are really becoming a lot more arbitrary and a lot less distinct. The newest malware has all of the functionality of all the old malware put together. Why is a hoax up here as a piece of malware? If it's not a real piece of malware, why are we worried about hoaxes?
Social engineering.
Desensitizes users.
Yeah, that's a good one. Why else?
Usually there's some sort of tool that will remove the virus that's on that system.
Oh, a hoax can be, okay, a hoax can be a way to get a real virus on there. Good. Why else? Hoax can be a very rudimentary form of denial of service. If you scare people into not using their machine, they're not using their machine. If they're taking their time worried about responding to a hoax, they're also misallocating resources too. Again, if you're not prioritizing your security, you're spending your security the wrong way. I love my clip art. Don't say a word about my clip art. Different forms of viruses. Boot sector infectors. Every time the system boots up, that virus pops up again. Anyone seen any of these in particular? Those can be particularly nasty because as soon as they come up, you can't do anything else. They lock down the system so that only they're running. Those are often basically a rudimentary form of extortion or blackmail, saying we're going to hold this system hostage till you pay us $12 and download the antivirus. System infectors can infect either file or boots or go after system structures. Companion virus is what they call it when one file mimics another file to, in the terms of the nomenclature, in terms of the name, to make it look like it's a justified, vindicated file. In case you go looking for it, it's hiding behind a good-sounding name. Email virus uses email. Multipartite virus. I want to point out this distinction here. The book suggests that multipartite virus means that it's a virus that can infect more than one type of target. It can go after the files. It can go after boot sectors. That's according to the book. Most of the time in the industry, when we refer to multipartite virus, we're talking about a piece of malware that's been carved up into chunks and is delivered in several different packages, often several different forms, and reassembled on the machine so that there's no signature that sees the whole thing. It's hiding behind the fact that it's been split up. It comes in many parts, hence multipartite, and is collected there. Macrovirus. We talked about Melissa a while back. It uses the coding structure of Microsoft objects to be able to run itself, to actually perform a function. This can be insidious because it sits in the template of the application of the program where the macro is being run from. So it's difficult to find it because it's not its own separate entity that can be expunged. Trojans we talked about. They are viruses that hide within other programs that have been downloaded on purpose by the user and run. Social engineering we've talked about quite a bit. Again, that's not using the IT, it's using the person. It's manipulating the wetware instead of the hardware or the software. Remote access Trojans, or RATs, are what the book refers to as a piece of malware that can be used to control a target machine. DDoS zombies are named as specialized types of rats that allows the bot herder to use the botnet to attack targets. We talked about logic bombs, malware that performs a function when there's a certain condition that is met, whether that's time, whether that's the failure to perform a certain acknowledgement. Spyware and adware. Are those necessarily malware? Depends how you look at them. They can be observing the behavior. They can be seeking out personal information of the user. Pranks. Why is pranks lumped in together with malware? It's supposed to be funny, but it may in fact cause some damage either in the exacerbated reaction of the user or because what was supposed to be humorous impacts the operation of the machine. And we talked about botnets, a bunch of zombied machines that can be used in an attack. Often, participants in botnets don't know that they've been zombied and don't know that they're being used for malicious purposes. Love my clip art. Love it. How do you protect from malware? Antivirus software can be useful. Problem is, it's always in a reactive state. Why are we saying that? What does that mean?
The malware exists before the solution.
Yeah, we can't get out ahead of new malware. We always have to respond to what it's done before. Even if that's exploiting a vulnerability that's brand new, we're responding to something that's been identified, a zero-day exploit. It's been identified by the attackers and is being used. There's all sorts of different types of antivirus software. What is the biggest downside to certain types of antivirus software?
Slows down the machine.
Yeah. You're basically limiting operational capability in exchange for security. Yeah. They tend to end up acting like the virus themselves. Training and policies, how do those help you combat malware? Remember I was picking on my dad yesterday? I did call him too, so I got those points, made those points back. I told him eventually just to take all of the antivirus off his system. Why? Because if he's going to allow exceptions to every piece of software he wants to download, regardless of its source, antivirus ain't going to help. Antivirus can tell you ahead of time if something looks like it's bad. It can tell you once it's been installed. But if you're going to keep accepting it anyway, if you really want to download and install something, you're going to download and install something. At that point, being told that it's bad is kind of superfluous, right? Training and policies can help your users know that what they're doing is a high-risk behavior. It can help them understand why they shouldn't click on that link in that email about the Spanish lottery to collect the 12 million pesos, right? You can help them understand why executing something or bringing a file in from home and running it on the machine before running it on the antivirus is a dangerous thing. That might help decrease the incidence of malware on your system. Different types of antivirus software. We talked about some of these before. We talked about ones that use signatures. We talked about ones that are behavior-based, where they look and try to see anomalies. And I think we talked somewhat about the ones that are looking for specific sections of code. We hadn't used the term heuristic before. In the industry, heuristic is also sometimes used to mean the behavioral-based. You've got your antivirus in place. You've got your scanners in place. You've got your filters in place. Now what do you do about it? You can do You can compare it much the same way you were comparing for your last known good when it came to your audit and assurance methodologies, when you wanted to ensure the validation of the material. You can have policies that require training. You can lock down your systems to not run executables. I've been in environments where users couldn't even download anything from the internet at all, where they couldn't run any programs without assistance of the help desk, where they didn't have local admin capabilities, so they couldn't install anything on their machines. Anyone ever worked in an environment where they had dismantled the USB jacks? Yeah, that happens sometimes. In some cases, I've known places where they went through these complexity of putting little locks on them, and they screwed them down. I always recommend take a hammer, whack it. It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. I don't know why they bothered to do that. Disk drives. There are lockout devices for disk drives as well. In some environments, a way of getting around that is to go away from using PCs altogether in your configuration and go to thin clients. Basically have a dumb terminal that works off a server. It's the local version of operating in the cloud, right?
We use device control to disable a lot of that stuff.
What is that?
Device control. Like you can do application and device control.
Oh, you can do that with a piece of software?
Yeah, we just disable in certain regions and such. We totally disable the use of USB, CD-ROMs.
Is that
video
host-based?
camera. Pardon?
Is that host-based?
Yep. It's
Do you
all
have to
part
install it on each machine? Or?
Well, it's all part of the semantic client, the AV client.
Oh, okay. So the client is installed on each machine, and you can regulate it from.
For policy. Yep.
That's very cool.
You could turn it on and turn it off, just via policy. So there's certain areas that they're not allowed to use anything, and then most where they are allowed, we log it all.
Do you have the granularity where you can reach down into a certain machine and turn on their CD-ROM for that user?
Yes, you'd have to apply the policy to that specific machine. Yeah,
That's
We
cool.
do it mostly, group-based usually. So yeah,
Because otherwise you
there's too many.
lose all the efficiency.
There's too many.
Yeah, it's too many. You have 20,000 users?
Right.
Yeah. That's very cool. What's the name of the tool?
It's just SEP. It's just semantic endpoint protection. It's just a piece of it. There's a bunch of pieces to it all, but
Nice. Good. Monitor that. Make sure that compliance is part of your program. Questions on malware? We have beaten malware to death.